So Mario and Luigi were already not facing, like, I don't want to say extinction, but not doing well. Mario and Luigi Brothership undersold in Japan compared to prior games in the series, undersold in the UK compared to prior games in the series. And from all accounts, Mario and Luigi Brothership is just not taking off like prior Mario and Luigi games did. Now, that already spelled some concern for the future of the franchise, but now we have something much grander going on here, because Sony is making a move, or at least they are trying to make a move that will directly impact Nintendo in a multitude of ways. Now, one aspect of this acquisition we're not really going to go over in this video has to deal with the anime side of things. In fact, it might be the biggest part of this new acquisition Sony's attempting to do, as they already kind of have a little bit of a monopoly on anime, especially here in the United States. This would give them an even larger one. So there is that, but overall this purchase is considered to be minuscule compared to what Microsoft did in purchasing Activision Blizzard King. That was a $69-70 billion purchase. This one's less than $4 billion. So still a lot of money, but not, you know, the kind of money that Microsoft dished out. So it'll probably be much easier to get this purchase passed through regulators. Now, who are they trying to purchase, and how does this affect Nintendo? Is it just as simple as taking third-party games away? What does Mario and Luigi Brothership have to do with it? Well, all of that we'll dive into in a moment. First, I want to remind you guys that we are on our road to 140,000 subscribers. You want to stay up to date on everything impacting Nintendo? Go ahead and subscribe right here. All right, so we go over to Nintendo Life, who has an article here saying Mario and Luigi's future is in doubt as a potential Sony acquisition emerges. Must consolidate. So let's get into this article. So a new report from Reuters has emerged that reveals that Sony is potentially in talks to purchase Kadokawa. Again, I'm probably butchering that name. Forgive me, please. A Japanese media conglomerate that serves as a parent to dozens of entertainment companies. In the gaming space, Kadokawa owns Spike Chunsoft, Acquire, Gotcha Games, and From Networks, while also owning a majority stake in From Software alongside Tencent and Sony. Sony already has a small stake. This would obviously give them pretty much control of From Software with this purchase. We imagine that From Software is proving particularly attractive for Sony, since the studio is responsible for the likes of Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and the Armored Core franchise. Obviously, we can see why that studio would be very appealing for Sony to get majority control over. However, for us, Sony gobbling up Acquire and Spike Chunsoft would be particularly devastating if it means neither can collaborate with Nintendo again. The former is known for its work with Square Enix on Octopath Traveler games, but more recently found itself in the headlines for its development of Mario and Luigi Brothership on the Switch. Should Sony acquire, we can't imagine that it would take too kindly to the team taking up time and resources on another future Mario and Luigi title. As such, Nintendo may need to look for an alternative developer if it wishes to continue the franchise. The latter, Spike Chunsoft, is an arguably even bigger potential loss for Nintendo fans, because after all, Acquire only made Mario and Luigi Brothership. Their Octopath Traveler games did go multi-platform. But Spike Chunsoft has made more than one game for Nintendo. So the studio is well known for the likes of Danganronpa and Master Detective Archives, but it's also the developer behind the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon franchise, having worked on it under the name Chunsoft before rebranding to Spike Chunsoft in 2012 following a merger with Spike. The last entry, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX, launched on the Switch in 2020. At the time of writing, neither Sony nor Kadokawa have commented on the reports of a potential acquisition, but Reuters states the talks are ongoing and, if successful, a deal could be signed within a matter of weeks. Of course, should it all go through, Sony could very well allow the studios to continue collaborating on whichever franchise they see fit, but something tells us that they'll become firmly entrenched with the PlayStation studios. And yeah, PlayStation also brings their games to PC, so this isn't going to have any impact on PC gamers and stuff like that. Probably a larger impact in the anime space than gaming. But obviously, Nintendo has made statements on acquisitions in the past. Here's an article over on GameIndustry.biz about Nintendo talking about, well, what they would have to do if somebody came after a partner company. So as it says here, Nintendo doesn't want to buy companies, but it may have to. Now, this is an opinion piece, but we have some quotes in here. So this is from when we say we do not do mergers and acquisition, there are always exceptions. This is what Satoru Iwata said back in 2008. So we're not against M&A, which is, acquisitions, if Nintendo can absorb the real value of the company. However, in most cases, the value of the software developing companies is attached to is its people, not the company, which is merely a vessel for its people. So when we purchase a company, we can purchase the vessel, but we cannot necessarily purchase the contents. Even if we should compete with others to purchase a software company, although we might be able to increase the sheer number of our developers and to gain a short-term result, we do not think it'll do good for us in the long run. We have been repeatedly saying that we will not do that kind of M&A, so that kind of acquisition. Now, this comes from an investors Q&A when they made the decision to buy Monolith Soft from Bandai Namco, and that was pretty cool. Right? That's all cool. And that's fine. That's words of the late Satoru Iwata. But what does this have to do with today? Because as the article goes on to point out, they bought Next Level Games, but, they made it very little doubt why they did it. They bought Next Level because the developer was looking to be bought, not because Nintendo was looking to buy. It was a defensive acquisition, not an offensive one. So Next Level Games was available to purchase because they were going to sell. And Nintendo said, no. We need to go ahead and take care of business, right? We need to make sure we don't lose Next Level Games to somebody else. Well, now we have this situation with Acquire and Spike Chunsoft. So coming back here, Iwata may not be with us anymore, but current President Shintaro Furukawa clearly holds the same values. In a quote about acquisitions reported by Bloomberg this month, he said, "Our brand was built upon products crafted with dedication by our employees, and having a large number of people who don't possess Nintendo DNA in our group would not be a plus for the company." Now, I think it's important to note when we're looking at this stuff is that, as Furukawa said with Next Level Games, like they bought Next Level Games because they were for sale. They were available for sale, and they didn't, want to lose that partner company, so they bought them up. And now we might not have known that this company that Sony was trying to buy was for sale, but now that we know that it is Nintendo going to get involved? That's the real question we have here, because I do believe that for Sony, the real value in buying this company is probably on the anime side. But if we set aside the anime, if we look at gaming, From Software is the big get for them, right? That's the thing where they could try to get their games to be exclusive on Sony platforms and PC, keep it away from Nintendo Switch 2, keep it away from any future Xbox or any other competitor that comes along, and have Sony just have complete control of everything they output. That would also be a huge win for them. It would also be a blow to us future Switch 2 owners that were hoping to get Elden Ring Complete Edition and stuff like that. Maybe that contract's already done and in the works, and we might get that anyways, but probably wouldn't get Elden Ring 2. Probably wouldn't get the Dark Souls games or any of the rest because Sony might not be interested in bringing them over. Then again, we did get Lego Horizons, so maybe Sony would still be friendly with Nintendo. Who knows? But what I will say is, I don't know that Acquire and Spike Chunsoft bring a ton of overall value in this purchase to Sony. It kind of makes it feel like if Furukawa got on the phone and talked to Sony during these negotiations, they can maybe do a side negotiation to purchase Acquire and Spike Chunsoft if they so desire to purchase them. So I don't want to rule out that Nintendo won't get involved. After all, Nintendo likes to get involved in acquisitions when their partner companies are being threatened. This would feel like a threat, so they would probably get involved. I think something similar could happen if somebody went ahead and tried to buy or make a serious offer to Platinum Games. I also think Nintendo would be involved in that process, trying to negotiate themselves and make their own offer. And to be clear, while the market valuation for this company Sony's trying to buy is $3.5 billion, that is in the realm of Nintendo. Nintendo could afford that. Nintendo's got $12 billion sitting in a bank. They could make this acquisition themselves. They just probably wouldn't be interested in doing so, if I would venture to guess, overall, because they probably don't want to get heavily involved in that anime space, and at least not in the way that that company's involved with it. And while Nintendo would obviously probably value From Software, especially as a company that makes games Nintendo typically doesn't, I don't know that Nintendo views them as a huge value add at the moment, considering that their primary audience is on other people's platforms, not Nintendo. I know that they made that deal for Bayonetta, but that was for a single franchise, not an entire development studio. So I do feel like in this case, this is kind of scary for Mario and Luigi because, one, Mario and Luigi Brothership was already not performing very well compared to prior games in the series. And then on top of that, the studio that made it might be going away. That kind of sucks. And then obviously for the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon franchise, well, we haven't had one in a few years, and there's probably one in the works, I would assume, right now for Switch 2. It's still one of those things where, man, they could go away too, and that would kind of suck because Mystery Dungeon does some numbers for Nintendo. They make a pretty penny off Mystery Dungeon. So does the Pokemon Company. So I could see Nintendo trying to get involved in these negotiations, but all we know right now is it's early stages, and one, that means they're available to purchase in the first place. Two, this is a direct threat onto companies Nintendo works with. Three, the price isn't so astronomical that Nintendo couldn't get in a bidding war should they want to, although they would lose in a bidding war to Sony, I would venture to guess, because Sony can outbid anything Nintendo can offer. So it would just be about would Sony be willing to spend that kind of money, or would they back off? I think that in large part from the gaming sector, this is a move by Sony to kind of counteract Square Enix, not Microsoft. Like, you might think, oh, because of Microsoft's big Activision Blizzard purchase, they really want to buy From Software. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's because Square Enix has now publicly stated and probably told Sony privately, we are no longer doing exclusivity deals with our games. You're not going to get Final Fantasy, the next one, exclusive on your system. It's just not happening. We're putting it everywhere, including Nintendo. They probably said that about any other projects as well. So with them kind of telling Sony, hey, we ain't even going to listen anymore with exclusivity deals, and Square Enix isn't for sale, so Sony can't buy them, well, that leaves them maybe wanting to replace that slate of games. So why not go out and buy a Game of the Year contending studio and make it exclusive? Makes a lot of sense. The Acquire and stuff and Spike Chun stuff really feels like something that should go to Nintendo, but these are complicated matters. They're all under one entity. There's no guarantee Nintendo gets involved. There's no guarantee Nintendo gets anything out of it. And there's no guarantee these companies ever make anything for Nintendo again. Welcome to business. This is the side of video games I don't really like talking about. Acquisitions and mergers are definitely a big part of the industry. But oftentimes it's more negative than it is positive. Like Next Level Games still being able to be awesome after the purchase. Go look at the history of acquisitions. That's usually not what happens. Monolith Soft being amazing after the purchase, that's not common. Nintendo is so careful with who they buy. It's more common to have something happen like Retro Studios, which was awesome, but now it's been a decade since they put a game out, right? Like, Nintendo's probably sunk a lot of money into that studio without getting much returns over the last 10 years. So I think that Nintendo is just very careful with what they spend their money on. And is Acquire worth it? Is Spike Chunsoft worth it? I don't know. Spike Chunsoft, again, is the only developer that's ever made the Mystery Dungeon series. You could arguably take Mario and Luigi and find a new developer, especially because Brothership didn't sell very well. But you're finding somebody else to do Mystery Dungeon? I mean, this would almost spell the end of the franchise, I would venture to guess. Then again, we thought that was the case when the studio closed down that made Mario and Luigi as well an Alpha Dream. And it turns out, no, it didn't stop. They were still making another one just with a new studio. So, I don't know, guys. Obviously, I don't like this kind of stuff. I was a bigger proponent when Microsoft was looking to buy Activision Blizzard, mostly because I was deathly scared of them being sold to Apple or Tencent. I thought the option, basically they had to sell because of everything that happened, all the controversy. They had to sell. So since they had to sell, I felt like Microsoft was maybe the lesser of all the evil options out there. This is a case where I'm not sure why this company is even looking to sell. Maybe they just want to cash out. But it kind of sucks because I don't see anything positive. Even if you're a PlayStation fan, what positive do you get out of this? You're good. Was there ever a threat you weren't going to get future From Software games? Well, was that ever a threat? No, this is obviously a money play, a business move by Sony. It's all about the money. Sony wants more of it. Don't blame them. Their financial reports for their gaming sector show very small profit margins. I can understand them maybe wanting to get some more higher profit games in the door. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rebelljans from Nintendo Prime. I guess I'll just catch you guys in that next video.